Everybody, welcome back. This is Dewey in Nashville, bringing you another potato experiment update. Sorry I haven't been able to do this as regularly as I would like, but then again, the garden doesn't exactly grow a whole lot every day. So it's been about 2.5 weeks or so. As you can see from the potato plants in front of me, they're doing wonderful. They're doing great, except for a couple of them, and we'll get to that. But pretty much all of them that are still around have been filled up to the top of the buckets or the bags. So, I mean, as far as the system in general working well to grow the potatoes, I mean, you can see this potato plant is 2 or 3 feet high. They're growing real well. So the buckets are, at least as far as the foliage, looks like they're growing the best so far. They're each about 3 feet. I've got 2 that are 3 feet tall, a couple that are a foot or 2 tall, and keeping on growing. The bags are not doing so hot, and so let's get some more of an individual look at some of the containers, and then that way you can see for yourself exactly how they're looking. Alright, here is a good potato plant in one of the buckets. As you can see, plenty of leaves. The leaves are nice and strong, plenty of stems and branches. It's got about 3 forks coming out of the base of the plant, coming out of the ground, and so these are looking pretty good. They are growing. Each of the stems at the base is about the size of my pinky or so, and so these, as far as what it looks like on top, they're probably the best. Now let me pan down, and you can see the one in the yellow bucket has, they've, I don't know if this is the way potato plants are supposed to do it. I think it's alright. There's my producer chiming in. But they're kind of leaning over, and they haven't broken or anything, so I don't think that's a bad thing. But they are kind of leaning a little bit. So yeah, I've fed them some Compost Tea yesterday, and they're doing real well. So they're growing. They appear to be getting all the nutrients they need. And these, the ones in the buckets by far are the tallest. So let me pull the ones from the buckets behind. So you can see the buckets are kind of taking over. Bucket potatoes. Here's one. Here's the best of the bagged potato plants. You can see lots of good new foliage coming out the top. You can see it's new growth from how light it is on the top. It's bent over, but then it's kind of supporting itself against the fence, so that's fine. This one over here is kind of the same way. I may just lean it that way and put it back so you can see. It's a few feet tall. If it was standing straight up, it'd probably be challenging some of the bucket potatoes. So they are growing great, even in the bags. I'm going to pan down here. You're probably saying, what's the gap in there? Well, the gap is because I had 2 potatoes that rotted. The one that I showed you last time didn't do so hot. I tried to save it, tried to give it water, maybe pull it back, save it a little bit. It just didn't take. So it's down here. The hole in the plastic is probably creating a mosquito haven down there. I see some flying around. I probably need to patch that up. And the one beside it here, is kind of the same way. It didn't really take much. So a little disappointed, but I mean, that's what an experiment's for. You take 5 and 5, and you see which ones do the best out of the 5. If we took 1 and 1 and one died, then I'd really be ticked off. This one here is not yet all the way out. I could probably go ahead and fill it up. I just need to mix up some soil and do that. One thing I am noticing, I feed with Compost Tea. Now, if you just put straight compost on the top and let the rain kind of water it down the buckets, it'll make its own compost tea, and that may be a little bit better for these bags. But what I am noticing is when I put it in, try and water it through the Compost Tea, it will start running down the sides of the bag out here, so it's not soaking all the way down in the soil. Now, could you do other methods to fertilize and get around that, yeah, but I like compost tea. And it works for all my other plants, so I don't want to have to do 2 methods to fertilize my plants. So that is a consideration. You know, when we get to the results, it may impact it because these may not be getting, oh, hickory nut. These may not be getting all the same nutrients that the ones on the buckets do, because the ones in the buckets, the water, the compost tea will actually soak down through the soil. Whereas these, it'll soak a little ways, it finds the side of the bag and then runs out. And maybe some of the nutrients are staying in, and it's just, you know, the bag's acting as a filter holding the nutrients in the bag, and then the water comes out. We'll see in the end result, you know, depending on how big the potatoes are. So that's the potato experiment update. Not a ton to show you right now. The big fun's going to happen when we get to digging up the potatoes. We're actually dumping out the potatoes instead of digging them up, thankfully, because I'm hoping they turn out better than the 4 that I planted in, let's see, was it June this year? Gave them 3.5 months to grow in the back, and I don't know if they just got diseased, if the sun didn't really get to them that well, or another plant shaded them out, because I went back there to dig them up this past weekend, and I got about 5 little dingleberry potatoes, little bitty things. Kind of disappointed because I was hoping that, you know, I'd have at least a couple of potatoes that we could eat, but not so much. So these are looking a lot healthier than those were. They're a lot larger, more foliage. They've grown quicker, so I'm really looking forward to the harvest on these. So that's going to be another month or so, at least, because the temps are, you know, around the 75 to 85 degree mark here as highs, lows in the 50s. So we've probably still got a few more weeks yet before the first frost, and I may cover these up to keep the frost off of them and allow the experiment to go on a little bit longer in, you know, into the fall, instead of, you know, just going at the first frost, digging them up, and that'd be it. So that's kind of the plan. Thanks for joining me, and this is Dewey again, reminding you that you plant the seed, or the seed potato, but God provides the harvest.